Good evening. I am Sangeeta Suresh from Bridge to India, and I'm happy to welcome you to Bridge to India's webinar on project operations and asset management. Thank you for joining us today. We have a great lineup of panelists, and it's my pleasure to introduce you to them. We have today Mr. Ashwini Kumar Patil, CEO of Tata Power Renewables, joining us to speak about the group's O&M initiatives. We also have with us Mr. Idrish Khan, CTO of Jinlong Solis. We also have with us Mr. Idrish Khan, the CTO of Jinlong Solis, and he's here to speak to us about the critical role inverters play in operations management. Welcome, Mr. Khan.
Thank you.
We have Mr. Sudhir Pathak, Head of Engineering, Hero Futures Energy, who will bring the perspectives of developers to this webinar. We know that module cleaning is a critical part of O&M, and here to speak to us about robotic cleaning and its benefits is Ecoppia's Vice President of Asia Pac region, Mr. Nalin Kumar Sharma. We have Mr. Puneet Jaggi, who is the founder of Prescinto Technologies and IoT and AI-based solutions for asset management. He also heads Solaric Gensol, one of the leading O&M service providers in India. And last but not the least, we have Mr. Aakash Trivedi, Senior General Manager from TUV SUD with us today. Thank you all for setting the time aside and joining us. We would like to extend a special word of thanks to our sponsors, Tata Power Solar and Solis, who make our webinar initiatives possible and bring quality content to our audience. Thank you. Now, on to the agenda for today's webinar. We will have a short introduction by Mr. Vinay Rustagi, Managing Director of Bridge to India, and a brief presentation from Mr. Aakash Trivedi from TUV SUD. This will be followed by a panel discussion. As always, we will have a Q&A session after the panel discussion, and any questions you have during the course of the panel discussion, please feel free to drop it at in the chat box at the bottom right corner of the panel in front of you. And before I hand over the panel discussion to Vinay, I would like to highlight our flagship product, the Indiare Navigator. It is a market intelligence portal which provides you with easy access and round-the-clock information on all of India's renewable energy sector. For more information about our product, please visit www.indiarenavigator.com or write to us at contact@bridge2india. Over to you, Vinay.
Thank you, Sangeeta, and a very, very warm welcome to all our panelists and a good afternoon to everybody attending this webinar. So the session and the theme for the webinar today is project operations and asset management. In the main, we are going to focus on utility scale solar sector. And, I have to say at the outset that O&M doesn't nearly receive nearly enough attention in the context of the renewable sector in India. Most of the time, the focus is always on auctions, tariffs, project development, financing. Maybe it is a little bit less fashionable, but I think there is no underplaying the importance of critical and sharp O&M management services. And to be fair, let's not make any mistake. I think O&M has been coming under increasing focus over the last few years. There is a operational base of 37 gigawatts of utility scale sector projects. Developers have had enough time to perfect and learn with the growth of the sector. New technologies have come in, costs have come down. And obviously with tariffs coming down as well, there is more and more focus on how to optimize performance of these projects. So what you can see on this slide, just very briefly, is that we are basically showing the market share of third-party O&M contractors. Now, the interesting thing is that about 5 years ago, the role of third-party O&M in India was minuscule. And it is only about now that we see almost like a 40% market share for third-party O&M, and I think the key takeaway for us is that the developers are seeing value in expert O&M services being provided by specialist O&M contractors, and there is a good mix of business models, contractual structures, and other market models which are kind of very actively kind of taking place in the market, and this market is poised to grow very rapidly. Sangeeta, if you move on. The other interesting thing that we have seen or relevant trend in the market over the last 5 years is the costs of O&M have actually come down very sharply. Of course, the main contributor has been the scale up in the project sizes itself. Average project size has gone up from somewhere about 40 to 50 megawatts 5 years ago to about 300 megawatts today. And the result is that O&M costs on a per megawatt peak basis have come down from somewhere around 4 to 4.5 lakh rupees to about 1.6 lakh rupees. So that is a pretty steep fall. And what you can see on the slide, we have shown you a range of O&M costs for manual cleaning and robotic cleaning solutions. Bulk of the cost goes towards salaries and security services. And then after that, module cleaning is the next big element of cost, followed by consumable spares, testing, and other products and services. So I will now like to go to each of my panelists. And then, Ashwini, I would like to start the discussion with you. Tata Power Renewables is one of the leading developers. You also provide O&M services to your clients, to some of your EPC clients and other clients. And I really want to kind of understand from you to what extent is the rosy picture painted by the developers or assumed by the developers at the time of bidding? How is that actually playing out in the market? Is our projects on the whole performing in line with expectations, or are there kind of, or you see too many challenges at the ground level, operational level, technical level, which are basically leading to aberrations in project performance? So give us a scenario of project performance and challenges faced by the developers.
Yeah, thanks for having me here, first of all. See, Tata Power Solar, in fact, they do O&M for third parties also, and the O&M is for our own plants also. So O&M team is common for both the things. And you were saying about the numbers, if I understood your question, the numbers we decide during the bidding stage, how much million units we will get, and the actual million units what we are getting. I don't see much difference in that because though the gap is there, reasons are also known. I will give some examples. Like suppose if some particular plant is supposed to generate million units, and if it is not generating the same million units, in spite of having 100% availability of grid, 100% availability of plants, and of course the reason is then conversion efficiency. That is the first thing which come to my mind. And practical example I will give, for example, our Pavagada plant, whatever numbers we have given, and if there is rain in the night, and if there is sunshine in the daytime, the numbers are even better than whatever number I have given. So on that front, this is our experience. So whenever the radiations are there, and whenever panel is clean, the conversion efficiencies are fantastic. So there is no doubt about it. Only the issue is how many times we need to clean the panels then, and what is that break even where we will get the better million units, and also at the same time the cost will be optimum. So those experiments our teams are doing at all the sites presently. Generally, the number of cycles we provide is 12 to 16 per month, one cycle, or 16 cycles. But then online measurement also our team is doing, like you consider few of the modules and then don't clean it, and other modules you clean it and then see the difference, and then you can always come to the conclusion. The work is in progress, and very soon we will come out of that. What is the best? Of course, it depends plant to plant also, site to site it varies. So I think whatever numbers we decide, these are the correct numbers, and there are not major challenges. If we decide to fill the gap, we can do that. Except if the radiations are, like for example, the month of May 2021, in last 121 years, it was second highest rainfall all over India. And first was 1990, second highest was 2021. So if such things are not in our control, two cyclones were there. So in that case, because of radiation, generations are less. Otherwise, I don't see any major issues.
Okay, thank you, Ashwini. I'll just jump over to Sudhir to get Sudhir your perspective. Whether first of all, do you agree with Ashwini? Is the our project portfolio is broadly performing in line with expectations? But then I also want to ask you, what are the 3 or 4 or 5 main factors which are actually impacting the O&M and the operational performance of these projects? Your views on that, please, Sudhir.
Yeah, thanks, Vinay. I think I'm audible. I think I'm audible, Vinay.
Yes. Sudhir, we can hear you.
Yeah, great. So first of all, thanks for this call. So see, as far as I understand, especially to solar or even if you say wind, but I know we are talking here about the solar part. So we have two fundamental KPIs on which we assess the performance of any solar asset. First KPI is the how efficient, what is the efficiency of the plant. I'm not saying about the solar panel, about the plant. And second is what is the availability. So if we are maintaining these two KPIs to the top, so we are extracting maximum out of my asset. So in order to achieve these KPIs, so you're right that in what way it can be achieved, that is what we have to understand. So what Mr. Ashwini was saying that based upon the number of cleaning cycles, what we do in our system, we are able to generate more or we are able to generate less. So before going into that, since I am from the design background, I will like to state that yes, first of all, 70% of the story is being written when the plant is being designed and executed, and 30% of the thing happens post that, how you maintain it. So we create history by designing the model modeling structures, by designing the layout, by doing the shadow analysis, by selecting the right module, and also by assuming different parameters in PVSys like soiling loss, how much it will be there, which data set we have, like what Ashwini ji told that it depends about the radiation. So which data set we have utilized, solar GIS, Metanorm, NASA, NRL, there are so many data sets. And then whatever assumptions we made, whatever values we get, they become the KPIs for achieving these broad level KPIs like availability and the efficiency. Also, it is very important that regarding the availability, what is the plant availability we have concerned, what is the grid availability we have thought for, which technology in case we have gone for trackers, so there will be an additional availability factor for trackers, and also a transmission gain. So when the 70% of the story is already written, then now it becomes the responsibility of our O&M head and the O&M team to achieve that. And as we all know, we have moved so many years, right? If you say in last 10 years, we have moved from 5 megawatt now to 600 megawatt. So things have gone 100 times or 120 times larger. So in my perception, to achieve these KPIs, just by putting the numbers that how many clean cycle we do, that will not be enough. We have to be smarter enough to achieve these KPIs. So in my perspective, that whether it is cleaning cycle or, for example, like cutting the grasses, because these are the two controllable factors we have, or in case we have a tracker, how to maintain the uptime, and in case we have and all the assets like transformers and all those things, how to maintain the uptime. So we need to have a smarter outlook on that to ensure that we maintain both the KPIs on the highest level, because we can't do it manually, we can't do it with the manpower we have, the skill sets we have. This is the starting thought which I can put upon.
Thanks, Sudhir. So I think if I hear you correctly, both Ashwini and Sudhir are saying that project performance, by and large, barring some other uncontrollable factors like radiation, is by and large in line with the projections which developers are making at the time of bidding. Is there any differing point of view from anybody else, whether Puneet or Aakash or anybody else?
Aakash, if you would like to go on first, I have a few points to add.
Okay, so Puneet, we'll just come back to you later then. Why don't we then go to Aakash? Aakash has got a, sorry Puneet, are you trying to say something? No, okay. Aakash has got a few slides for us. Aakash, obviously, from TUV SUD, they monitor the performance of a lot of projects in the market. They provide a range of services to banks, other lenders, as well as developers. Aakash, why don't you share a few slides of yours and run us through those slides, and post which we will resume the rest of our discussion.
Yeah, sure, certainly. Thank you, Vinay, and thanks all the fellow panelists for giving this opportunity. Basically, today's discussions are related to the O&M related challenges. I will not say problems, but I will say challenges from the O&M perspective. Right now, whatever in India, the total installed capacity wise, just a perspective. Can we go to next slide? Next slide, please. This is just a perspective of India's power sector at a glance vis-a-vis the solar. So this is in total India's installed capacity as far as 30th of June 2021 against the renewable capacity in India as well as the solar cumulative capacity. As you rightly has mentioned, 37 gigawatts worth of operational utility scale projects are already operational. Now, what are the various problems, not only related to two of the KPIs as Mr. Ashwini Kumar and Mr. Sudhirji has told. Apart from that, there are other factors also which are playing a vital role. What we had observed during our various audits, O&M related services for our various clients and projects. Can we go to next slide, please?
Can I just interject? I think somebody.
Affecting the O&M practices.
Sorry, Aakash. There is a lot of background noise. Could I request everybody else to mute their laptops, please? Sorry, Aakash. Please carry on.
Yeah. So there are many factors which are affecting the O&M practices, what we had observed, and which are to be considered in the planning stage itself for devising the site-specific O&M regime, I will say. At the planning stage or at the design stage, as Sudhirji rightly told, particularly some of the local climate factors which we need to take into account, like what is the flooding situation at site, particularly looking to some of the sites in Madhya Pradesh or in Rajasthan or in Tamil Nadu or in Gujarat or Karnataka. Wherever the local climate situation is there, that has to be taken into account while devising the O&M regime, the planning stage. High winds, snow, or the extreme temperatures, like whether the project setup is in Ladakh or project setup is somewhere in Rajasthan or in Tamil Nadu, where the high rains are there. So all these local climate factors are to be taken into account while devising the O&M regime. That is a major challenge at the stage of planning itself. Second one is the geotechnical factors which are to be taken into account as far as we understand from our perspective of audits, like a groundwater resistivity or the low load bearing properties of the soil, particularly soil pH levels and the seismic risk level. Another factor is the accessibility, particularly from the proximity to the existing roads, extent of new roads which are required for the photovoltaic projects. Also accessing the modules for the maintenance purpose that we kept in view. Now, another major factor is the layout designing part, like designing the row spacing to reduce the inter-row shading and associated shading losses, and also the planning the layout to minimize the cable runs and associated electrical losses. So these are very small factors, but when it comes to an end, then it makes a bigger picture, or rather bigger factor. The factor a lot at the end of the terminal. Another is the module soiling, including the local weather part, environmental, human and wildlife factors, water availability from the module cleaning, and there is a wet cleaning or dry cleaning perspective. So all these are the major factors which are to be taken into account while devising the O&M regime, particularly Now, the recently one of the concept which has come like a agro photovoltaic concept, while in some of the projects in some states. So there's a new concept which is also coming up. So that is also to be taken into account while considering the O&M regime part. Next slide, please. The major plant parameters, so the major aspects, what we had seen the O&M practices are affecting. First is the plant availability. The standard practice is 89 to 98 to 99% is the plant availability for the solar photovoltaic large utility scale projects. The major issues are the problems which many developers are facing. Like they don't, sometimes the plant's availability records are not periodically monitored or records are not being kept properly. And the reason company fails to achieve maximum plant availability, excluding the grid downtime. Grid, we are keeping it apart. I'm talking only about the keeping records, and that's when they attract the LD, liquidated damages from the grid or from the relative authorities wherever they have signed the agreements. Some of the actions which may be taken at the O&M stage itself, I've listed it down over here. Based on the perspective, there's a predictive maintenance. You can modify the preventive maintenance periodically or the season wise, depending on the situation. You may change your O&M practice. It is not a constant O&M practice or the fixed one which you have to follow. You have to modify according to the site situation, site condition, and the local climate. Next is identify the root cause analysis for the frequent failures and act on the same immediately, as early as possible. I will say not immediately, but as early as possible. Not to save the cost on the spare parts, but it should be available in stores to reduce the future energy generation loss to small component failures. So all the spares availability, that is also one of the major issue what we have observed in our periodic audits for the solar photovoltaic projects. And also we need to repower the plant with the additional cost to meet or increase the economic value. This is from what initially the panelists were discussing about the revised or the new technology, solar modules and all these things. So this is one of the action which may be which may be thought of during the O&M practice. Second one major factor is the plant forecasted generation. The standard practice is it must be kept within the PPA range. So whatever the capacity of PPA which has been signed, has to be kept within that. Now, what are the various issues or the problems which are faced? Are many commissioned plants are failed to meet the CUF, or the minimum guaranteed generation criteria as per PPA in long term. It may be due to low performance or radiation, whatever the other factors are. But there are some of the actions which may be taken or considered. It may be thought of depending on the site, or periodically evaluate whether the plant can achieve forecasted generation till 25 years or not. Maybe once the plant is in operation for 2 years or 5 years down the line, it may be evaluated or it may be re-looked into what kind of practice which we need to adopt to meet the 25 years PPA in a longer run. Second is the lower radiation or the module degradation, the string level failures, which are the important factors which play a vital role in rather lowering the forecasted generations. This is what we had observed. Next one is using the string level monitoring software to micro monitor the performance. Next one is must we suggest that plant developers must do on-site yield testing before handing over to the O&M to identify any damage due to mishandling. So once the modules have come to site, once the construction is completed, project is commissioned, and it has been handed over to the O&M regime or O&M team, rather it has to be ensured that complete set of the plant, all the instruments, everything is in perfect condition and they are operating as per the design norms. The last one is the regular IV count tracing to keep the module degradation tab, just to keep a tab on it, just to keep an update that what is the condition of the modules as a perspective of a complete project point of view. The next factors are also in the subsequent slides.
Sorry, Aakash, we just need to go. Sorry, Aakash, we just need to go a little bit faster, please.
Yeah, sure.
2 more minutes. Sorry, in the interest of time.
Yeah, fine. Module mounting structure quality, that is MMS quality. Standard practice must follow the IS code, deflection, and other things. What issues what we have seen is MMS are being damaged at many places due to high wind, due to storm, or due to rather heavy rains. The remedial actions, what we suggest, or rather it can be thought of by the developers, you must follow the IS code. Deflection, it should be within the safe limits and the depth as per proper conditions. Also, the replacement of the modules which are damaged over a period of time. Many of the cases, modules replacement are not given by suppliers, so that is also to be thought or to be rather thought of. And plant protections, that is a standard earthing and lightning protections to avoid the damage to the solar modules due to inadequate design and the level of protections. So these are the major factors and the problems during the O&M what we have seen that developers and the projects are facing. These are some of the snapshots from some of the projects what we have observed practically during our audits. You can see on the screen there are burnt junction boxes or the damaged back sheets. Also, some of the modules are damaged. Some of the modules are broken. Also, the storage of the modules is not being proper. So various kind of practical problems what we had seen during the O&M audits for various projects. Also for the electrical panels and all these things, there are issues. Also vegetation growth which is not being controlled, of course, and the drainage pattern or the stormwater drainage which are in damaged condition. So these are some of the practical problems what we had observed during the O&M audits for some of the projects. So this is our perspective from O&M challenges for the solar PV projects. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Aakash. Thank you so much for that. I will come to Puneet, you now. Puneet, you have a unique perspective, both as an O&M, as third-party O&M provider, as well as a technology provider as well. So one, please feel free to comment on what Ashwini, Sudhir, or Aakash have said so far. But the second thing I want you to really comment on, is how is the third-party O&M market growing? What kind of, how do you see that market? How do you segment the developers? Which kind of developers still prefer to do O&M in-house? Which developers are going increasingly to third-party O&M companies? And what is the typical scope of work and the contractual structure for such O&M services? Over to you, Puneet.
Sure. Thank you, Vinay. And while I do not have anything to dispute, I would definitely say if our projects are performing at the levels that they were designed for, we are an exception and not a rule, because there's a KWH analytics report out there which says that 70% of the projects in the US are going to probably default on their debt if they continue to be performing that badly as they are today. So we are lucky, but to be fair, I think we take P90 and P75 considerations when we are talking about performance of that project, and we are lucky that most of our projects are able to meet that. But I don't think that a lot of projects are able to hit the P50 numbers that are typically simulated for. That said, let me just back up and give you my view at a 30,000 feet level first, and then we'll get into a couple of details on third party versus in-house and how does O&M market really shape up nowadays. If you look at it, if I was trying to look at the basic dynamics of financials that happens in solar power projects, what is it? It is about 17.5 lakhs, 18 lakh units of generation per megawatt that you're expecting in a year. I'm talking about AC megawatt. We are talking about 3 rupee tariff or lower, and this comes to roughly about 50 odd lakh rupees of annual revenue per megawatt per year that people can expect in their projects. Now, whether that be 1.5, 2 lakh rupees, like the numbers that we had presented earlier on, or anywhere in that range, we're talking about 3 to 4% only being the operation and maintenance cost. However, the entire 50 lakh rupees depends on how good this 3 lakh rupees or 2 lakh rupees or 1 lakh rupees is really spent, right? It can be, if you have lost 1% on account of availability because of whatever reason, a bad operator, a bad spare part management, bad engineering, bad equipment, that is half your O&M cost right there. So I think there's a lot of concentration that has happened on the O&M price over the last 4 or 5 years, and for a good reason. when the solar market started, CERC had set a benchmark of 9 lakh rupees a megawatt to be increased every year by another 10% odd. Right, those were the assumptions that we started off with, and today we are at 1.5 lakh rupees per megawatt. In no small part, as Sudhirji mentioned, has it been made possible because the project sizes have become very huge. So earlier, while they used to be 2 to 3 megawatts per person, nowadays that ratio is anywhere from 6 to 10 megawatts per person, depending on the size of the plants. So the size of plants have definitely played a major role. So has great technology suppliers like Ecoppia, who have helped reduce in that cost, and all of that while has happened. But वहाँ पे बहुत juice निकल गया. There is a lot of juice that has been taken out, and now I can say, from my own experience, that there is hardly any juice left in the cost optimization bit. Now let's get to the whole part about the third party as well as in-house O&M, and this will also talk about the cost to an extent at least. So when the operators are trying to work at reasonable margins, whilst there's still a requirement for people to look at in-house O&M at all. You know, most of the people are IPPs. Most of them have got large sovereign funds and private equity funds and other backings, right? So they are not really in the business of operation and maintenance. Of course, the likes of Tata is an exception. Salt to steel company, they do everything under the sun, and O&M very much is their business. But most other people, they are pure play IPPs with no business being there in the operation and maintenance space. The largest reason why people are still wanting to go for in-house O&M versus a third-party O&M is an element of missing trust. The fact that your guy on the ground is going to make a better effort to improve the performance on the plant than the third-party guy who's going to be there on the ground, right? It's the element of trust, which is one of the biggest reasons. And the second largest reason why people are wanting to do in-house, and this is not for the larger IPPs, now this is for the smaller IPPs, that's to save 18% of GST. Right, the moment you get a third-party operator, you need to pay him a piece of 100 rupees, but you need to pay him a GST of 18 rupees on top of that. Whereas if the people on the ground or the security guards are directly on the rolls of the owner himself, he saves on the 18% GST because that is an expense. Right, so those are the two major reasons why I see why anybody would want to subcontract, why anybody would not want to subcontract. Now, sticking with the first reason, because the second market is a smaller market, there are a lot, I mean, all of these smaller guys put together are probably 500 megawatts, 1,000 megawatts, who are doing it to save GSTs. The bigger issue here is trust. And the reason why trust has become a major issue is because so far contracts have not kept the alignment of objectives between the third-party operator and the IPP. While we have done a good job at getting the pricing down and perfecting all the other contractual clauses, there are very few contracts. I'll say that in our own portfolio, there are probably only 30%, 40% of the contracts, and that too is only an effort in the last 1.5 years, which are there incentivizing the operators, which will help them align your interest with them. So as a result, what is happening is if 100 rupees is my cost, right, and 6 rupees is my margin, for example, I'm only willing to take enough risk up to 6 rupees, and after that I'll raise up my hands, unless it's a protection of brand or an account or something like that. But more often than not, that's the reality. Those are the commercials that the third-party operator is working on. Whereas if you say that 100 rupees is my cost, I've got zero margin, absolutely, but the owner is willing to give me 30 rupees, which is only still 1% of his, only still 1% higher, 1% of his revenue. But I'm promising to give him 3%, 5% improved generation, which we have delivered in the past. That is a true win-win that can happen, and that is the way that we are expecting the O&M market to be played out. In fact, this is the way that the global O&M market is already playing out. So those are the kind of things that we are expecting to happen in India as well. While the decrease in cost will still keep on happening with the increasing of project size, with more and more technology playing a role, with megawatt per person going down, megawatt per person going up, with surveillance being done through drones, with people changing from preventive maintenance to predictive maintenance with advanced technology and software, some of which we are also developing. Right, while the cost may still keep on going down, it is not nowhere going to be as accelerated as it was there in the past. The true win-win will happen through incentivizing contractual structures to have the operator work alongside you. And maybe just last 5 seconds, there are a couple of pitfalls when you try to do O&M in-house as well. You can fire an operator. You can impose a liquidated damages on an operator, a third-party operator. Very difficult to fire people for underperformance. I mean, it happens, but you typically don't do that a lot. And definitely, you cannot get any kind of liquidated damages from an employee, right? So those are some of the elements which are there, which work well between third party and in-house malinterviews.
Thank you, Puneet. I think some very interesting issues. We will come back to these issues a little bit later. Let me just first go to our other panelists. I'll come to you, Idrish. They say that inverter is the heart of the solar system, particularly during the operations and maintenance phase. I've read reports saying that something like 30 to 40 or 50% of the total faults or the availability failures are because of inverters. Now, please tell us how inverter technology has improved, particularly given the advancements in IT and remote monitoring, etc., and how inverter technology improvement in turn is contributing to better O&M for solar projects.
Thank you, Vinay. Thank you, British India, for inviting me on this forum and I would really appreciate a lot of good experience I'm getting it from my co-panelists. I can see they have really burned their hands in past and in terms of O&M activity. So, being a inverter supplier, Solis is one of the leading manufacturer which is designing string inverters, and it's an oldest inverter manufacturer been operated since last 16 years. So talking about the O&M activities, yes, string inverter is the one of the, or the you can call as a inverter is the one of the major component in entire scenario where the power evacuation and the power converting need to be done and need to be evacuated into the grid. So if any breakdown or any kind of mishaps happens with the device, your entire PR and other profitability of a project goes wrong, and your annual forecast and other calculations becomes very not in your favorable conditions. So now looking at the inverter point of view, as inverter is the one of the component which always provide lot of informations which an O&M operator or O&M engineer can smartly use it. As the technology is been getting enhanced day by day, we have seen that string inverters were not so popular in past. When we see the situation 10 years down the line, where the major capacity of solar plant was not more than 5 megawatts. So we used to harness DC, and we have to consolidate in a single location using central inverter, and then evacuate into the grid. But now the technology advancement happened with a lot of factors in terms of semiconductors and things. So now it is possible the string inverters are also scaled up with the bigger capacity, with 200 plus, 250 plus, and now even scaling up even with more than 300 kilowatt of capacity. So for looking at any plant size like 50 megawatt or 100 megawatt, so string inverters are now picking up, and people are opting it for their projects. So advantages wise, picking a string inverters, firstly we get a huge advantage, because O&M is nothing but the performance of the plant is nothing but that how much kilowatt hour energy you produce in a day and in a year. So how deeply we can harness the AC power, DC power, and convert it into your units. So going with the single MPPT connection or going with multi MPPT. So earlier we are harnessing multiple strings and putting into a central point. So, but if in case any string or a particular modules are not performing, we are ending up spending more time in terms of troubleshooting to find out where the problem is, and then you lose your generation. But whereas the string inverters nowadays are narrowing those thing which we can pinpoint the which array is not performing, which array has got a particular problem, or which array can be need to be addressed in terms of any kind of module failure or any kind of component which is there inside the model, like junction box are not or diode broken. So you will able to identify. So this kind of functionality can give you an advantage to do the smart O&M activity. As Mr. Akash has already listed that some of the very key points where IV curve scanning to know your modules are working in what way, like either they are performing or not, and whether they are delivering the desired current to the what they have been stated in the data sheet or in the module capacity. So on that perspective, the inverters are now equipped with those functionality, where we can have an IV curve scanning feature integrated, whereas inverter can go operator can go and just run and see what is the best power curve can be able to see from a particular array. And if they see there is some kind of a dip or something which is not been performing as per the curve what is need to be achieved, then can be address that problem. So here the features with the technology advancement in the inverters have been opting to, so that to support plant operators to understand more on the on to pinpoint the problems which are there. Because if we are talking about 100 megawatt or 50 megawatt, a big ground mounted project, so we don't, there are several arrays and several modules which are being installed. So going down to in a field to trace where exactly the problem is, it's also going to be a big task. So here the inverters play a vital role, where the operator can find out on this particular array it is not performing well, and can utilize, can go and depute an engineer to rectify. So that's how you can maximize your generation guarantee. Another advantage, like string inverters can play, that if in case the availability is a major question always when it comes to an operation and maintenance activity. Solar inverters, it's an electronic device which do major converging activity, and it's possible that it may fail, because it's what lot of electronics are there inside the inverter. It can fail and it need to be fixed. So string inverters can then give an advantage that you don't need any big spare part management or big spare components we need to keep. You can just simply do a piece to piece replacement within the manpower availability outside, and you don't need to have any, like just a qualified electrical engineer can do this job. So you don't need to wait for a specialized engineer to become from the manufacturer side, and you would they will do the activity. So by making the things online back, so within just 2 or 3 hours time you can keep a spare inverters and can do the replacement as quickly as possible, so you can achieve your uptime guarantee. So this is also can be achieved, and which can add up in your annual forecast, what is the generation guarantee you are committed. Talking about the future change in technology, whichever is been coming, because now if I talk about 10 years down the line, the product.
Idrish, sorry, future technologies, we'll just come to that a little later if you don't mind.
Okay.
But let me just thank you so much for that. Let me just come to you, Nalin. So Nalin, what I kind of fascinated by on the robotic cleaning front is that the robotic cleaning has become so popular in India. India is probably one of the leading markets in robotic cleaning. And the surprising thing is that we've all been saying that Indian developers are trying to cut costs when it comes to project implementation, but but they are actually installing robotic cleaning systems, incurring capital cost upfront, mainly to make sure that the operational performance of the projects is better, plant uptime or the soiling loss is less, plant output is more, etc. So does that mean that the Indian developers are becoming, I would say, more quality conscious, more performance conscious, and be willing to spend money to basically ensure a better output? Would you agree with that kind of broad hypothesis?
Yes, I would agree, but not 100% on quality front. What I would say is, as Indians, right from our childhood, we are value seekers. So we are trying to find if we can spend 1 rupee and get more than 1 rupee in return. So robotics also is primarily driven by that only. So it's not that they want to have quality or they want to basically just move to robotic. For them, it need to make economic sense, which is very true. Otherwise, the technology needs to be in museum and not in the field. So that's what we have been experiencing as well. So all the low cost bid, if we entered Indian market in 2016, and if you look at all the lowest bids thereafter, in 2016 it was NG. So both the projects were with us. Fortum did it with manual cleaning, and 4 years later they basically retrofitted that with Ecoppia. After that it was 2.97 Reva. Spring Energy, that project is also with Ecoppia. After that, 2.64, 2.44, all these projects went with the robotics. Basically, so initial couple of projects can be primarily because of perception or quality perception, so on and so forth. But after a couple of years, you will have actual numbers in hand. So all these things are primarily driven by cost economics. In fact, I would like to build on or amalgate 3 points which basically Sudhir, Aakash and Puneet raised. So Sudhir said 70% of quality or maintenance is defined at design stage itself, construction phase. Aakash basically pointed something similar, and Puneet brought a very, very valid point, which was basically aligning interest of all stakeholders. Basically, maintenance guys need to have a stake. If they are increasing the pie, their share should also increase. It should not happen. For example, if you give EPC the right to choose whether they would go with robotics or not, they would invariably not go with robotics, because typical contracts with maintenance is for 2 years. Robotics will have a payback of 5 years, so it won't make sense for them to go with it. But if you give them a rev share kind of a proposal, then they will go with it. So in fact, what I feel what will happen in future is we will see digital construction management playing a big role. So earlier this year, there was a company called Procore, which was into digital construction management. It IPO'd at more than $5 billion valuation. So we will see companies which will be doing end-to-end digital management, digital construction management, both in project side as well as operation side. So to draw from what Idrish was also saying, so what we will see, there would be a single platform which will tell you how to optimize things. For example, security from say 100% manual base, it will shift to a mix of what Puneet was also mentioning, drones plus vicinity sensors plus actual personnel. So instead of say 20 security guards, you will have probably 2 security guards, 10 vicinity sensors, so on and so forth. So it will become a mix of it. Similarly, we'll see automation coming up across the board. As Sudhir was saying, in grass cutting as well, we'll see a lot of automation coming in. One more benefit that we can have from automation is you are basically free of many of the force majeure risks as well. For example, when COVID struck and the country had a lockdown over last 18 months for almost 100 days or so. So whichever sites were on robotics, they didn't even miss a single cleaning cycle. So that is, if you have 100 days where you are struggling to clean the panel versus 100 days where you are just relaxing and you are aware that everything will happen. So that is why industry will move toward automation. One more point which Puneet brought up, I think it will expand further, which is basically monitoring and going into the micros. That is something even Aakash had said, that we need to go into the micro. So with automation and digitalization coming in, we would be able to see performance of modules, performance at string level, etc., so that we can take corrective action. It is like if I don't know my disease, I won't know whether to go to a heart specialist or an ENT surgeon. So what will happen is, right now, for example, hotspot monitoring. So most of the companies, they would do it once in a year, once in 2 years, once in 3 years. With digital technologies coming in, the cost will drop significantly. and probably we'll see these cycles running every week. So that is something I think will be adding a lot of value to the existing asset portfolios.
Okay. Thank you, Nalin. Some very interesting comments. I think we'll come back to some of these themes later. So if I can just summarize 2 or 3 points so far. One is on the performance. At a very macro level, I think Ashwini and Sudhir were of the view that performance is largely in line with projections, but then there were a few discordant voices from, I think, Aakash as well as Puneet. So I think it's probably a slightly mixed picture. On the cost front, Puneet said costs cannot go down anymore. But then again, I'm kind of hearing that a lot of automation, new technologies are coming, costs can kind of still go down. Is that right, Ashwini? Would you agree with that? Is there a scope to kind of reduce costs and optimize costs even further? And is that happening? Is that client-led? Is that commercial business pressure-led? How do you see the cost pressures in the industry, in the market?
Yeah. In fact, whatever Nalin said now, I agree with him that future automation will be there, like thermal imaging and using the drone he talked about. And if you see, many of the problems you will come to know there and then, which otherwise in a large solar plant, it is very difficult to identify. Like if there is diode defect, if there is, if the modules are isolated, or if defects such as hotspots are there, it is very difficult. Whereas using the drones, it is very easy to find out and then correct it there and then ensure that the generation is again restored. Whatever generation loss is there, it will not be there. Having said this, also, in fact, I will just give an example. We have central control room where most of our plants are connected there, and any defect at inverter level, at SMB level, our team come to know immediately, and then they tell site people, look, there is defect, and then can you please see that? In not only in solar but also wind farms also. If the wind generator is not running as per the power curve, because in CCRA, how the wind turbine should supposed to run, it is there, and if it is not running as per the power curve, then they communicate. Look, your wind turbine is not running as per the power curve, and you need to do something. So such type of things are very useful. Immediately you will come to know the defect. But if you see present availabilities are in the range of 99.8%, 99.9%, and 100% in few cases. For example, in Q1, out of our 19 plants of Tata Power Renewable, 15 were having 100% availability, and other 4 were having 99.9% availability. Okay, so then what is the margin? Another thing which Naveen said is, even if we say that the plant is 100% availabilities, but we don't know what defects are there, as Nalin rightly said. I'm not sure using these improvement initiative, how much yield will be there. Definitely there will be yield improvement, no doubt about it, but how much it will be? Because when I deal with the market people, and when who are assuring us that the improvement initiatives will bring some percentage of benefit, it is 1 to 2%, not more than that. That is the claim. But is it really it will be 1 to 2%? That is again another question. So I'm not sure all these improvement initiatives, like we are also running many improvement initiatives, one of which I told about drone, then minimizing the length of the cable, that leapfrog methods and other things. Also, robotic cleaning also, somebody spoke about it, we tried it. But again, robotic cleaning, if the terrain is not proper, so in that case, it is very difficult to use the robotic cleaning everywhere. And then you have to align in the beginning only, when you install the plant, that time only you should decide, I will be using robotic cleaning for that, and then the alignment should be there. Otherwise, it may not be a good solution, in my opinion. So having so though we are running many improvement initiatives across our 47 sites, how much MUs, how much percentage of MUs we will get from that improvement initiatives, including digitalization. I'm really not sure at this stage. And the major factor here, again and again, I'm repeating it, is radiation. The solar is game of radiation again. I will give example. Suppose if the plant is generating, say, 6 million units in a day, several plants, and if the rain is there and if cloud is there, and now you see the season is changing, monsoons are getting extended, and one day the clouds are there, and instead of 5, we generate 3. So almost 40% drop, 40 to 60% drop in a one day. And to cover that gap, sun should shine in next 12 to 14 days, and then we can cover the gap. So in my opinion, the major thing is radiation. It's the game of radiation. From improvement initiatives, we will not get much. Rather, I will say I'm not very sure about it. And I'm happy if we are getting that, though we are trying. We are trying very hard. So in fact, let me share with you, we are driving 40 improvement initiatives across all sites, all 47 sites, many improvement initiatives. So hopefully in another 4-5 months, if we get opportunity, I will be very happy to share with you the results if the numbers are very high. 1 to 2%, yes, definitely we will get, no doubt about it. But whether we will get more than that, that is the question.
So thanks, Ashwini. Just on the radiation point, Aakash, is there anything you can comment on? Is there a bigger radiation issue? Let's set aside the month of April or May, which was really a one-off. But is there a bigger, more longer-lasting issue on radiation? Are people assuming more optimistic? Are they making more optimistic assumptions on radiation?
No, I understand what Ashwini told is very, very true in the sense that kind of when forecasting and this thing, rather it may narrow down this gap particularly, but to some extent, not to 100% extent. So just we need to rather take that factor more into account while devising our regime part.
Okay. Just on the technology front, I mean, we've heard various discussions about thermal imaging, drones, and robotic cleaning, obviously. What is the future landscape? Are there more new technologies which are kind of evolving, which are going to improve the O&M and the performance aspects of these projects? Puneet, you want to comment on that? I mean, what are the innovations you're seeing on the O&M side?
My apologies, I was on mute. Yeah, I was actually wanting to talk about that anyway, and I'm 100% in agreement when it comes to the radiation being the most important factor. It's, I mean, for what coal supply is for a coal plant, radiation is for a solar plant. You don't give it coal, there is no power generation. Similarly, you give it less radiation to a plant and you lose that for sure. So there is absolutely no doubt about it, but unfortunately, that's not under our control. So by and large, what we have seen is that, and this is an aggregated data set that I'm throwing at you, but if there was 12% underperformance which was happening in a plant, roughly about 5 to 6% has been on account of radiation. There is another 5 to 7% which is controllable loss. However, within that also, there is a 2%, 3%, which is a non-economically recoverable loss. I mean, you are probably losing $1,000 of revenue or ₹1,00,000 of revenue, but the cost of replacement of panels to recover that ₹1,00,000 of revenue is ₹10,00,000. So a payback of 10 years is something nobody would want to invest in, right? So what we are left as a result of that is anywhere in the range of, so for good plants, it will maybe, as Ashwini sir said, and actually I've got an intimate experience with some of the plants. We have been consulting to these plants of Tata in the past. So I know that they are very, very good quality plants. And in those cases, maybe it will be 1-2%. But an average Joe plant in India, I am pretty confident will be able to get a 3% plus kind of raise with these initiatives. Now, what are these initiatives in the first place? Broadly, I think I can put them into two buckets. One is a digitization and data bucket, and the other is actual things that need to move on the ground more effectively, more efficiently, right? And that will lead to either reduction in cost or improvement in generation. The digitization bucket is something that is still leaking, so to say. What I mean by that, a lot of projects do not have good SCADAs yet. And of course, I'm not talking about the people on the call over here. I know that they have got great SCADAs, but a lot of projects, I would even argue to say that 30% of projects installed in India still are lacking a basic, decent SCADA, dependable SCADA with a 95% plus data availability as well, right? If they have the SCADA, they are still not capturing the micro level details. Very, very few people are capturing micro level details. Either they have string inverter installations or string monitoring box installations. So you are able to get the data at an inverter level. Now, inverter level is still decent. However, a module is 3000x more granularity than the inverter level data. So you need to be able to actually go to that level in order to be able to take effective steps. And third aspect is also the software ecosystem. I think the way the data and digital softwares have evolved over the last decade, the focus has largely been on data visualization, right? In the first 5 years, from 2010 to 2015, the biggest winning factor for a project used to be at what price are you able to secure your module. From 2015 to 18, the biggest factor became, are you able to get access to sovereign wealth funds and private equity funds or some other cheaper source of finance? That was the key factor of the win. But only in the recent past is generation the only and only last battleground where you can win from your neighbor or your competitor. So most of these softwares are actually not made for performance enhancement in the first place. That has changed only in the last 2-3 years. Likes of Prescinto have come up on the scene where we are actually trying to diagnose the root cause of what is ailing your plant, which part of your plant is dirty and hence losing 2000 units, which part of your plant is degraded and hence losing 5000 units, which part of your plant is down and losing 10,000 units. There are 30 such insights which add up to only 1% improvement of generation. So you have to do this iteratively again and again and again to get that 2, 3, 5% generation out of the plant. Now that is only on the digitization part. And now I'm getting into Nalin's territory of actual physical work that needs to happen on the site. Robots, drones doubling up for thermographic inspections as well as surveillance. We are working with India's largest drone company to customize the drones meant for military purposes, but use them for surveillance in solar power plants so that we can have both done on a daily basis, if not a weekly basis in case of thermography, right? We are talking about using grass cutting machines, which have already been proven in European countries where labor is super expensive. The typical payback on such a grass cutting machine imported, where typical machine costs 40 lakh rupees, but 300 megawatts of grass cutting can be done by a single machine with a single operator, right? So there are these other aspects of technology which will come up on the field as well, which will help in improvement of both cost going down as well as generation going up. Just last 2 seconds, I still don't believe that we'll be able to go down in cost, but not. What I mean by that is that you cannot get to a lower cost of unit. What I mean by that, your technician is already 18,000 rupees minimum wages. You cannot get him at 15,000 rupees anymore. A 100 megawatt site has to have a site in charge with 50, 60, 70,000 rupees in cost. You get him at 25,000 and you are, you'll definitely be in a problem later on. That cannot change. What you can do is instead of having 50 technicians, you can bring that number down to 15 by having better technology. I'll stop now.
Okay. No, thanks, Puneet. Fascinating stuff as usual. Idrish, you were talking about some inverter technologies and how that is helping on the O&M front. Is there anything you want to talk about? Upcoming new technologies?
Yeah, see, inverters is like what is that populating the data, so which any O&M engineer or operator can process further. And as Puneet has rightly said, that now the work has really doing more and more on building good SCADA monitorings and to gather a lot of data and to process further. And also things have been developing that by the SCADA company itself to predict that some future information that this particular array need to do and cleaning on so and so time period, or this particular array would have certain problems. So this kind of predictability is also now coming up with the data what is being produced, is being shared by the inverter side. Talking about future perspective, as the scale of power plants are going up, similarly the inverter technologies are also scaling up their capacity, narrowing down the each and every channels, like to see where exactly which pinpoints and which all problems can we cater, like string monitoring, IV curve scanning, and talking about like if certain failures happen, so then only a particular string can be eliminated, and rather losing entire inverter generation so can be eliminated. So all those kind of things, features are been now integrating. Talking about like if the data analysis is the one which will be the coming more and more in the inverters, to show that to the operator gives an information prior it goes into a failure. So these kind of the things will be going to be adapted more in coming days. And uh, uh, that's the reason that if we are going with the harnessing more DC system, and going with string indoor technology, that will give some more advantages for in terms of smart O&M operating technology.
Thanks, Idrish. I think Puneet mentioned this thing about controllables and uncontrollables. I mean, radiation is one uncontrollable, but then, what are the other uncontrollables? Sudhir, do you want to just talk about what is it which is like outside the control of the developers and the O&M contractors, which is, in your view, materially affecting the performance of projects? And
Yeah.
that is better.
So when I
Yeah, please.
yeah, Vinay, so got it. So yeah, I wanted to explain slightly on two aspects, like what initially Puneet was trying to explain about a third-party O&M contractor, what they are able to do, or what in-house contractor O&M is able to do.
Okay.
So first of all, on that aspect, unlike in case of a wind, whereas WTG is more or less like a black box. So in case of solar, everything is CKD. So you buy each and everything from separate sources, and then if you ask a third-party O&M contractor to guarantee for the PR, right? Or definitely nobody guarantees for generation, because like what Ashwini told, that the sun god is quite unpredictable. So however, even PR is no O&M contractor will go for, because typically because the maximum cost of spare is with us. We have to provide the spare, we have to provide each and everything, and then they will be limited to a kind of loss. They can maintain the loss, they can maintain the soiling loss, they can soil loss, and like these things. So this is point number one. This is one of the reasons by why many people are trying to go towards self O&M. But the fundamental things lies, like what Nalin said, uh, about the digitalization. So one thing which, as you asked Vinay, that about controllable and uncontrollable. So in my opinion, how we can make uncontrollable part as controllable, the key lies into the digitalization. And this word is not a simple word, it's a really a complex word. Why I'm saying so? That as of now, the integrated approach is still lacking as far as we say as a digital world. So let us say, for example, what Idrish was trying to say about string inverters. In case of an string inverter, so what is actually happening, that it is one of the fundamental IoTs we have in our plant. It has a lot of intelligence into it. It is able to see each and every series of modules as one separate set of solar plant. So it is able to gather the data from there. That is number one. But that is not the end of the story. The thing is, there should be an integrated approach, in the sense, if you add on several more IoTs, like people were saying drone. Like drone, you can do drone if it is fitted with a thermal imaging camera. And then if you take this as an IoT, your transformer is another IoT, third drone is third IoT. Even modules at times, they also work like an IoTs. Now what is lacking is that how to integrate that and how to remove, because in an inverter or in a plant, for 600 megawatt plant, every second you are generating 2 GB of data, which is immense, and in which maximum thing is garbage. So what I perceive, this time has come to go to the prescriptive maintenance. People talked about reactive, people talked about kind of even predictive also, but the stage has come to go for prescriptive maintenance. That is the only way, whether we have a third party O&M or self O&M, to reduce the cost and also even then reach the best out of it. For example, let us take a scenario which I think I have been like keep on telling in other panels as well, that let us assume a scenario that you have IoT based, you have string inverters all around who are monitoring each and every string. Then you have a drone which through an integrated approach, it is connected to the algorithm. Let us take an example that the string inverter by its algorithm, it comes to know that my string number n is not performing as good as as good as other strings. Then what will happen? It, by its processing of the machine learning, it will prescribe, give a command to one of the drones to fly to that particular string, capture the thermal image as well as the normal image, and then it will feed the data back to the algorithm, which will run it and sense automatically, okay, this string is having higher soiling, or it's in hotspot, or some model has cracked, some diode has failed. If it is finding that it is a soiling loss, the string inverter again, or you can not the string inverter, but the system will give a command to the robotic cleaning device. It is also automated, which will automatically go to that table, take a one swipe, and then it will give a feedback to the system, and then it will find. So there should be a closed loop control system. Like in my Thermal days, we used to be doing only closed loop control systems. However, in solar and wind, the things are more or less open, or OLCS. So now once we are moving towards CLCS, we are moving towards closed loop control system. Once we have a closed loop control system, we have a right feedback in the right time, which will give us, these are the list of points, go and attend it. Then in less number of manpower, you will be able to go and improve your assets. Either you will improve your availability, like again, if I take one example, that through the regression analysis, because with the machine learning is fundamentally based upon the regression analysis, which checks many variants, many variables, and try to correlate. If I am able to develop an algorithm which senses my transformer is going to fail in another 2 weeks, right? If it gives an alarm today itself, and then it also prescribes like a doctor that go and maybe do a filtration, go and do a thermal imaging, go and change the bushing or some loose connection is there, then I can save the first of all, I will improve the plant efficiency, because I will save the outage of the plant, and also I will stop my extra capex of keeping an asset which is worth maybe you can say 5 crores if it is a power transformer like that. So I think with this integrated approach, ultimately we'll come to a situation where we can reduce the cost even, we will make uncontrollable as controllable, and ultimately we'll be able to achieve the KPIs. So this is what I wanted to speak about that. Yeah.
Thank you, Sudhir. I have to say the discussion is getting more technical than I thought it would. Just before we go to Q&A, I'm conscious of the time. Ashwini, I wanted to ask you one last question. What do you see as the major 2 or 3 trends shaping the O&M market going forward? Either in terms of marketplace or technologies or anything else.
Yeah, can you please repeat? Your voice was a little break.
Sure. No. So I asked you, what are the 2 or 3 major trends that you see in the O&M marketplace going forward?
Yeah. In fact, we conducted one benchmarking study. We compared ourselves with the with our neighbors, because that is the right thing to do, right? Rather than comparing somebody in Rajasthan and somebody in Karnataka or Andhra Pradesh. So when we did the comparison, we found that, and it is apple to apple comparison, because somewhere DC ratio is less, somewhere other factors, tracking system is there. So when we did apple to apple comparison, we found that in some cases we are number one, some cases we are number two, some cases we are number three. And then we try to find out what these people are doing. So having said this, market trend in future, it will be, as everybody is saying, it will be whatever is in our control, do that. It will drive from that, whatever is in our control. Yeah. So what is in our control is, as Sudhir rightly said, maintenance. What maintenance we have been doing, we need to change the maintenance techniques, maintenance methods, more digitalization, more automation, and all these things these are in our control. And how much extract more million units from these things, that will be the measure trend in the market. So in short, I will tell whatever is in our control, that market will try to achieve that using digitalization and automation. And I gave example of our central control room, which we have already doing it, and we started getting the results also from that, though very little and not as per expected. My point is that only, how much more we will get from this,
Right.
because once we invest in digitalization, then again it is more equipment, more sensors, everything is more cameras, yeah, and then AMC of the camera will be there, AMC of CCTV camera will be there, AMC of all digital instruments will be there. If it is cheaper, it is okay, but then again these are also costs. So how much million units we will get, and how much benefits will be there in the long term, that will decide whether this digitalization and automation is the right way or not. It appears today that this is the right way.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Ashwini. Puneet, you want to add to that? Do you think this third-party O&M business is going to keep on growing? Developers will shift towards this model more in future? I mean, by the way, you just heard from Sudhir, who does believe that self O&M is the best way forward for them.
Right. So no, I won't be disputing anybody on the panel. But that's it. If I have to say that there are three major trends, I mean, I can, based on today's discussion, I can say digitization. But no, one trend is definitely going to be digitization and technology. I believe another trend is going to be the better alignment between stakeholders. I think people will understand more and more value that is going to come as a result of that. And a third thing which we haven't actually discussed, but one of my beliefs is that we will also see expertise around performance management pop up on the screen. Right? We will see performance management as a service. It can come from the likes of TUV, it can come from platform providers like Prescinto, it can come from a lot of people, but performance management as a service is going to arise in India, when people are going to understand that, there are guys in Excel who can do 1 + 1 = 2, and there are guys in Excel who can also do Pareto and pivots and God knows what not. Right? We want people who have got the expertise, who are a good mixed breed of solar domain expertise, plus data science, plus advanced analytical abilities. And these are the guys who we are going to deploy. In case of Tata, they'll have their own teams. And in case of smaller operators, people who want to keep themselves lean, this will become an outsourced service in itself. So those are probably the three trends that I think will come up on the screen.
Okay, thank you, Puneet. I'll just go to Q&A now. There is one question here which basically says, and I'll kind of overlay my own views on that. In the West, there is this business called asset management, which is, in addition to O&M, there is actually a third-party asset manager who is managing the asset on behalf of the developer. But that business has not kind of taken off in India yet. Is there any kind of good reason for that? Is that likely to kind of change in the future? Anybody who wants to comment on that, Ashwini or Sudhir, if you want to take that.
Yeah, definitely. See, we can see that India is basically tariff-driven market. So as I told in the beginning, that the life of the plant is written during the bidding stage, because you run a strict financial model, and by adding these asset management and all those aspects, first of all, we Indians believe as a cultural this thing that we can do anything. Right, this is one of the fundamental beliefs which takes us to that level, that we are the master of all. Second thing, our or anybody, any developer believes that let us not add on the cost, do it all on yourself so that you will save the cost. I think these two fundamental things are there. I think this asset management gradually come into account as more European or US investors, they invest in India. They bring their concept from there. And also, when the lenders and all these people start believing, because now we can see
I think we're losing.
lenders are there in the market.
Sorry, Sudhir, we can't hear you. Ashwini, did you have anything to say on that? I mean, do you see any demand or push from your clients to offer asset management services?
Yeah, can you elaborate a little bit on asset management, and then maybe I will respond.
So asset management is essentially managing the project on behalf of the developer, and it is distinct from O&M services. It's not actually operating the project, but it is like making sure that the O&M contractor is, doing the job properly. They have a suitably structured O&M contract, buying the right insurances, making sure that all the compliances are in place, lenders information reports, etc.
Revenues also? Are they responsible for revenues also?
I'm not sure, but I won't think so. There will be some level of performance obligation on them, but how is it structured? I can't comment on that.
Okay, so okay, I'll come to that. So in fact, this asset, we tried this in wind. This year only we tried. Look, you take the contract, the comprehensive contract. If you say everything they will do, and the spares and bigger spares and everything they will do for us. Okay, we will pay them, and availability guarantees will be there. We tried this time whether million units guarantees also will be there or not. MU guarantee. You should generate this much amount of million units in a year. Okay, if you generate above that, let's share the profit. And if the MU generated are less, let it be shared from both the sides. And we found that nobody is ready to do that in India. Whereas from where it came, because we did one benchmarking study, and from the study it came out that such model is also available. And we tried this for our wind plants, because solar everything is in-house. So solar, there is no question of such model, because everything we are doing in-house. But wind we tried, and nobody was ready to do that. Yeah, so that is the thing, and that is because again it is the same point. It is unreliable weather. Otherwise, if weather is reliable, then everybody will take this challenge. MU challenge they will take, but million unit challenge nobody will take if the weather is not it's not reliable. Yeah, that is the major factor in fact. Otherwise people will happily, because if the contractor is confident that doing all these things which we are speaking, if million units are increasing because of that, I don't see any problem why people will not take that. Because if they are confident that they will increase 5% of revenue, then definitely people will come forward and they will share. Why they are not doing is because of this reason only. And most of the people, they say that, look, we will increase your revenue using improvement initiative. and whatever improvement is there other than the uncontrollable part, that will be shared. Such models are available. Yeah.
Okay, thanks Ashwini. I think we are nearly at the end of the time now. Looks like we covered most of the questions in any case in our discussion. So, I'll just summarize very quickly. For me, I think the conclusions are that the industry is unsurprisingly very, very value conscious. I think by and large, performance of the
Vinay, one more last point, which was important point. I think I will cover. It is see, in fact, if we see our data for Q1, and suppose if 100 is the loss, whatever we planned and the gap was 100, out of 100, almost 76% was radiation and 12% was road curtailment, which we did not consider. Because nowadays, if you say in Tamil Nadu and in Andhra Pradesh, there is huge load curtailment on account of grid stability. And we are also in we are in APTEL, we are in TNERC, we are in APERC, and we studied this a lot, and we found that even though they are saying it is because of grid stability, we found that whenever curtailment is going on, the frequencies are lower. Whenever grid curtailment is going on, they are purchasing power from other states. So such type of things are happening. So it is because of economic reason this is happening, and this is a this issue everybody is facing nowadays, wind and solar both. So whenever, and then again, if you see scheduling and forecasting, there are 15-minute slots, and if there is a sign change after six time interval, that is 1.5 hours, 15 minutes, 6 slots. If there is sign change, then there is huge penalty SLDC has to pay. So to prevent this penalty, they will do curtailment and see to it that there won't be any sign change. So this is the major issue, and we lost 12% in Q1, and I'm sure we will do similar thing in other quarters also. Though we are in High Court, we are in APTEL, we are in state regulators also. So cases are going on. The curtailment amount and deemed generation is increasing, and so this is the state. So I thought I'll cover this here.
Sure, sure. No, thank you, Ashwini. That's very useful. So just to conclude, I think if from whatever I can gather, the technical performance of the projects is pretty much on the mark. It is mainly the uncontrollables like radiation, grid curtailment, factors like that, which are the big causing the major underperformance in terms of our output. Technology, I mean, it's surprising how technology is kind of playing such a key role in O&M. The market is definitely seems to be getting more sophisticated. Puneet said it, I think, best. Digitization seems to be the theme of the O&M and the asset management market. So with that, I will pass over to my colleague Sangeeta. But just before that, thank you very much to Puneet Jaggi, Nalin Sharma, Ashwini Kumar Patil, Idrish Khan, Aakash Trivedi, and Sudhir Pathak for making this webinar so interesting. Thank you very much for your insights. I'm sure our participants found it very, very interesting and insightful. Over to you, Sangeeta.
Thank you, Vinay. And thank you once again to all the panelists for setting time aside for us. One more time, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Tata Power Solar and Solis, for bringing in quality content, for helping us bring quality content to our viewers. Thank you. We will be sharing the recording of today's webinar on your registered email account, as well as hosting it on our website and our YouTube channel. We have several webinars, interviews, and events lined up in the coming months, including our 2-day virtual conference on the corporate renewable markets coming up in September. So until then, it's goodbye from all of us at Bridge to India. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.